Well, hello and welcome to today's webinar, Google Sites for Schools Part 3. This session is part of a series of free webinars offered every week or so by the Stark Portage Area Computer Consortium, or SPARC for short. SPARC is an information technology center up here in Northeast Ohio where we support about 30 school districts. However, this webinar is open to everyone, and we'd like to welcome all the people who have joined us live today or are watching this recording in the future. My name is Eric Curts, and I'm a technology integration specialist here at Spark, and I'll be your presenter for this session today. I'm joined by my coworker, colleague, Anthony Luskery. He'll be monitoring the Q&A doc, which we'll explain here in just a moment. All the information for today's webinar can be found at tiny.cc/spark 233. So that's tiny.cc/SPARCC 233. I'm going to head to that link right now, and that pops me out to the web page for our webinar. On that web page, you're going to find the live video that you're probably watching right now. That'll become the recorded video after the webinar is done. Below there, we've got a couple of help resources, not a whole bunch of them today. We'll zoom in a little bit there. We've got a help guide as well as a slideshow. Now, that help guide is pretty detailed, though. It's a 20-some plus page help guide that goes into great detail about creating Google Sites for schools. Below there, you'll see a link to the live session chat document. If you've got any questions today or a suggestion, a comment you'd like to participate with us, please open up that Google document. It's an editable document, and Anthony's going to be monitoring that. He'll answer whatever questions you have there or pass them on to me, or hey, you guys can answer each other's questions, share your own resources in there. It's a great way to participate in the webinar. Below there is a link to the session evaluation. If you get a moment afterwards, please click on that to quickly rate the session. Your feedback is greatly appreciated, helps us improve these in the future. And then finally, there's a chance for you to get a certificate. Yes, when you're done watching the webinar, there's a short quiz. Take that quiz, pass the quiz, and you'll get emailed a PDF certificate of attendance. All right, fantastic. Let's get going. Again, all of that information, tiny.cc/spark233. So what are we going to be talking about here today? Well, first of all, this is part 3 in our Google Sites for Schools trilogy, I guess. We've now made it to the trilogy mark. I do not know if there'll be other ones after this. Who knows? There's still lots of content out there, but at least we made it to the trilogy mark. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start with a very brief review of what we covered in the first 2 so that you'll know if you want to go back and catch those. But then what we're doing today, pretty much, it's a bit of a grab bag, but we're going to be looking at these 4 main areas. We're talking about navigation. So sidebar navigation, horizontal navigation, gadgets for navigation. So all about helping people get around your site and customizing the navigation to look the way you want it to. Then we're going to talk about site layout and especially your header. So how you can make adjustments to that to make it more professional or personal or however you want it to look. We then do want to talk about page level permissions. We've talked about sharing in the past, but we did not get into page level permissions. That's a whole different animal. We want to spend some time explaining what power that provides you as a school district. And then finally, just a little bit to wrap things up on where you go from here as far as duplicating pages, deleting pages, cleaning up your website as it grows over time. That's the plan. Now, if you've got other questions that I'm not covering, and if there is time, Anthony's going to be monitoring that Q&A doc. I will be more than happy to address anything else that we can fit in as time permits. So what do you need for this session? Well, basically, you should have a Google Apps or Gmail account of some sort. As long as you've got a Google account, you can get to Google Sites, again, assuming your school has not turned it off for any particular reason. And if that's the case, you could always just use a personal Gmail account because you have access to sites through a Gmail account as well. You should have basic experience with sites. We're not going to reteach all of the earlier things in this session. We're assuming that you either understand the basics of sites or that you've had the chance to watch part 1 and or part 2. Now those can be found at tiny.cc/spark215 and spark220. That's where the 2 links for those previous parts in this series. Now what we covered in those in part 1, basically it was what are the benefits of a Google site, how do you create a site, how do you change the theme, how do you edit the main welcome page, just text, images, links, some basics, and then how do you create at least one other page. We made a calendar page. That's as far as we got in the first hour. So setting up a site, some basic themes, some basic editing, and that was about it. Then in part 2 of, and sharing the site, forgot to mention that we also did share the site at the very end. In part 2, we covered basically creating additional web pages. So we said, let's look at all the kind of pages you can create. We created a blank web page where we inserted tons of stuff, videos and slideshows. We put a Prezi in there, lots of things like that. Then we talked about forms and docs pages. We talked about creating a blog page or an announcement page. We did a list page where we created a page with lots of educational links. And then finally, we finished up with a photo gallery page. So it was really just looking at all the different templates and ways that you can create additional pages in your site. And that's what got us up to where we're at here today. And so let's get on with the session. Remember, tiny.cc/spark233 will get you to all of today's resources. Let's dive into it. So where I need to go to get started is I need to go to Google Sites. So I'm going to open up a new tab here. I'm going to go up to my waffle button in the top right-hand corner. And from that drop-down menu, I'm going to choose Sites. And that will take me to my list of sites that I am able to edit. So I might own these, or somebody else who owns them might have shared them with me so that I have the ability to edit them as well. And the site that we've been using this whole time is this Curts example 002. That's been our site that we've been building since we started. So not starting over with a new site, we're just building on top of what we've been doing up to this point. So this is all the stuff that came from session 1 and session 2. All right, so where are we beginning here this afternoon? As we said, the first thing is navigation. We want to talk about how you can change the navigation that's already there in your site and how you can add other navigation options. And there's pretty much 3 things we're going to look at for that. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to talk about is changing the navigation over here on the left-hand side. And if I zoom in a little bit here, so you can see it's a little bit better, you'll notice that down the left-hand side, you have a sidebar. And every time I created a new page, no matter what it was, my photo page, my tech links, my upcoming webinars, as I did that, Google Sites automatically built this navigation. Now that's nice. I mean, that's very polite of it. So if I create a new page, Google Sites throws it into this. Well, there's always a trade-off. If something's easy, which that is, then it's also not very configurable. So for example, notice it's alphabetical. Calendar, forms and docs 2, photos, on down the line. Yeah, they're alphabetical. You can't change the order of them. You can't change how they're named. You can't leave some out, put others in. If you let Google Sites just do the navigation for you, well, you're going to get what it does for you, basically, an alphabetical list of all of your pages. Well, here's the thing. You can change that. So how do you do that? Well, to change the stuff we're talking about here with navigation, all of that is done through your gear button up here in the top right, like normal. Click on your gear button. And from that drop-down menu in the gear button, we're going to go down to a link that says Edit Site Layout. Okay, so very important link. Everything we're doing for the first chunk of this webinar is going to be all through this same link. So again, you go up to your gear as normal, and you go all the way down to Edit Site Layout. That's going to let us get into the settings for the sidebar and the header and lots of other things that are more of the site layout. So I'm going to click on Edit Site Layout, and as soon as I do, notice my website has changed. It looks a little different now. Still the same site, but there's some things popping up that weren't there before. So notice that across the top, I've now got this section that says header, horizontal navigation, sidebar, custom footer, site width. So this bar popped up that was not there earlier. This bar allows me to turn things on and off in my site. So for example, I got a sidebar here on the side. what if I decided I didn't even want a sidebar? Maybe for some reason I just don't want one there. Well, because I've gone into Edit Site Layout, I could come here and click on the sidebar button to toggle that, give it a second, and poof, it's gone. Now it's not deleted. It just hit it. It turned it off. Then I could come back and say, whoops, I did not mean that. And I could click on the sidebar button again and it's back. Yeah, it's still there. Okay. So when I go to Edit Site Layout, I can turn sections on and off. I can also edit sections. So if I take my mouse and I hover it above the navigation here, I can actually just click on the navigation and I can edit that. So basically I can edit the navigation, I can edit my header, I can come down here and edit my footer. The only thing I can't edit is the actual web page because we're not in that mode. We are not editing the content of the page I'm looking at. We're editing the layout, the header, the sidebar, the footer. We're editing everything around the page. Okay, so let's talk about editing the navigation over here. Well, again, if I take my mouse and I hover above there, I don't have to do anything but click anywhere I want inside of this navigation area. Just by clicking on it, that's going to tell it I want to edit that navigation. So let's click on it. And once I do, it pops up this window here where it says configure navigation. All right, well, what can I do with the navigation? Well, a couple of things. I could change the title. If I didn't want it to be called navigation, I could call it, web links, or I could call it, site catalog, or whatever you want to call it. I'll just leave it navigation. That's fine. Below there, though, there's a few things I can adjust. For example, notice it says levels of pages to show. And right now, it is showing 2 levels deep. Now, what does that mean? Well, let me cancel for a second and I'll show you. Remember when I was creating all my pages and I did an announcement page? That was session 2. So go back to session 2 to see that. I created what was called an announcement page. It's like a blog page. And every time I added something new to the announcement page, it made a sub page under it. So there's the webinars page with sub pages underneath there. These are all level 1, the pages that are showing up on the far left. The pages that are indented, those are sub pages. Those would be level 2. And if I made a sub page under those would be level 3. Well, I bet you can tell pretty quick, this could become a mess. If this was an active blog page, maybe it's your class news page, or it's the student of the week page. Every time you add a new student of the week, or every time you add a new class news article, this would just grow and grow and grow and grow. And sure, they could collapse it with the little arrow, but if they don't think to do that, when they go to your web page, kaboom, your sidebar is going to be massive. So what I could do is I could simply come over here, click on my navigation, and I could simply say, you know what, let's just go down 1 level. Instead of going down to 2 levels, let's just say 1 level is enough. If somebody wants to dig deeper, they can click on the links to dig deeper. So if I say 1 level and hit OK, give that a moment to update there. And now you'll notice my navigation does not go beyond level 1. So where it says upcoming webinars, it doesn't show the individual items under there. So if it was student of the week or class news, it wouldn't show those. The user would have to click on that to actually get in and see the individual articles. So that's one option. I know it's not a lot of control. It's a little control. What if you want total control over your navigation? You're saying, Eric, that's not enough. Just controlling the level. I want to rearrange these. I want to rename them. I want to hide certain links, put others out there. Okay, well, let's do it. So if, again, I'm still in Edit Site Layout, this is all happening in Edit Site Layout. If I come over here and click on anywhere inside of navigation, notice there's a button, or excuse me, a checkbox that I can check or uncheck called Automatically Organize My Navigation. Aha, there you go. If I uncheck Automatically Organize My Navigation, I'm basically saying, Google Sites, thanks for your offer of help, but I got this. I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to put together all of the links on my own. So if I uncheck the box, what it's going to do is it's going to remove everything from my navigation. And now I have to build my own navigation. Now, how can I do that? I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see this a little bit better down there on the bottom. Basically, what it gives me is 2 options here. I can either come down here and click to add a page. Now, that means add a page I've already created, add a page from my site. And I can add as many pages in there as I want, and I can move them up and down and in and out and all kinds of stuff. There's also a link over here to add a URL. That means add a link that's not one of my pages. Maybe I want to add a link out to our Spark Tech Integration page, or out to my controlaltachieve.com blog, or out to the Spark homepage. I can add links that go somewhere other than my site by using the add URL. Well, let's kind of rebuild our navigation. So where it says select pages to show, if I come here and I click on add page, it's going to let me scroll down through all of the pages I've created. And I may say, you know what? I think I want my technology links to be the very first thing. So let's choose that and hit OK. Okay, it added it to the list. Then I think maybe my forms and docs page, let's add that. And then let's go ahead and add my photo gallery. And then let's add the upcoming webinars. And then let's add a page on the 4Cs for education. You get the idea. I can put these in whatever order I want. And if I don't like the order, if I'm like, you know what, I think I still need my home page probably in there somewhere. I forgot about that. And you know what, let's add the home page in. And whoops, let's get back to that. Sorry about that, I clicked out of it. So let's go back and add the home page in. And now I don't want it at the bottom. No problem. There's these arrows on the side here. I can push it up, 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 or down, whichever I want to go. And I can rearrange these any way I want. And I can just keep doing it. If there's a page I don't want to add, if for some reason I don't want forms and docs 2, I could just not add it. Nobody's going to know it's there. They just won't have it there to click on. So it's really up to you to decide what you want to add and what you, oops, I added the 4Cs twice, and no problem. Just use your trash can, boink, and you can get rid of it just as quickly. So you can decide what you want to add and what you don't want to add as you build that list of, we didn't add our calendar yet. We'll add that in as you build your list of links. Now, like I said, it doesn't just have to be links from your site. Instead of hitting add page, if I choose add URL instead, it's going to say, okay, give me some text to put in there, and then give me a link. So maybe I do want to go out and I want to grab our tech integration page. So here's our Spark Tech Integration page. I could come here and I could copy the URL, come back over here, and I could paste that URL in. And for a title, I could say something like Spark TI for Spark Tech Integration. And I could even tell it to open that in a new window. So if somebody clicks on it, they'll jump out of our site to that. Hit OK. And now Spark TI has been added to my navigation list, even though it's not one of the pages that is inside of this site. It's an external page. No problem at all. All right. So basically, if you do this, you are in total control of the navigation. If I hit OK, give that a moment to update, you'll now see my navigation looks completely different. It's a different order. It's not alphabetical. It's just the pages I want. It's got the Spark TI page in there. Now, like I said, though, you're trading off easy for control. That means every time you make a new page, you've got to add it in. It will no longer automatically get added. So if you decide later on to add a really cool page that talks about virtual reality and you want to have resources for your kids to access some cool VR stuff for Google Cardboard or whatever, well, it's not going to show up in the navigation unless you come back to edit site layout, go back to the navigation, go back to add the page in. So pretty much it puts it entirely in your hands. Now, when you're done doing all of that, all you have to do to exit this mode is there's a big close button in the top right-hand corner. We are going to stay in edit site layout mode until we hit close. So let's try it. Let's hit close. It'll exit us out of the mode. And now these changes are official. If anybody comes to my page now, they will now see my customized list of links over here on the side to navigate around the site. All right. So that's one way that you can mess around with navigation. Let's take a look at a couple others. For the next one, we're going to head right back to where we were. So we're going to go back to the gear and we're going to scroll down to Edit Site Layout. Exact same thing we did a moment ago. That puts us back in the site layout mode. And this time, instead of playing around with our navigation over here in the sidebar, notice that we have the option for horizontal navigation. Aha! Maybe you don't want links going down the side. Maybe you want links going across the page, or maybe you want both of them. That's okay. You could have some across the top, some down the side. Well, to do that, you have to turn on your horizontal navigation, and it's turned off by default. So up here in this toolbar, if you click on horizontal navigation, it will turn it from being off to on. And right there it is. There's my horizontal navigation bar. Just by clicking on that, I got a home button and I got this blank bar. Now there's nothing on it other than the home button. If you turn it off, it disappears. And if you click it again, you turn it back on, it comes back. So how do I get links onto it? Well, folks, it's just like the sidebar. I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to click on the horizontal navigation bar while I'm in my edit site layout mode, and that will take me into the edit option for it. So let's do that. Let's click on my horizontal navigation bar, and guess what? It looks identical to what we just did. So I don't really have to reteach you this. I'll just throw a few in, but it's the exact same thing. You basically can add a page from your site or add a URL out to an external page. So I could come here and say, oh, I think I want my calendar to be in the horizontal bar. And then I think I want my photos to be in the horizontal bar. And then I think I want my upcoming webinars to be in the horizontal bar. And maybe I want my forms and docs to be there. And so basically I can build all of these buttons exactly like we just did. When you're all done, hit OK. And you're going to notice it's going to build, and there they are. Now I've got buttons going across the top of my page that people can click on rather than down the side. And again, you can do both of them. That's fine. It's just up to you, one or the other or both. It's your call. Another neat thing, though, is you do have the ability to get drop-down menus here. Now, that can be a real space saver as your site grows. If you end up having tons of pages, just having, the main links across the top or down the side might not really help people find what they need. Maybe under webinars, you've got a ton of webinars and you want that to drop down and people can choose it. Well, because it's a drop-down menu, that saves a lot of space. So how does that work? Well, if you go right back into editing your horizontal navigation, just give a click right on the bar like before. What you can do is you can add those pages, put them underneath the webinars, and then you can use these left and right arrows to indent or undent. I'm not sure what the other option is, but you can indent them. And if you put them indented, it means they are a sub menu of that item, therefore a drop down menu. So if I come here to upcoming webinars and I go to add page, and let's say I actually add some of our upcoming, well, these are no longer upcoming. These are old now, but they were upcoming when we built the site in session 2. Learn something new every day. That was one of Anthony's. Let's add that. And then let's add another page. Let's also add one I had upcoming at that time, which was teaching math with Google Drawings. Now notice when I added those, it just put them underneath upcoming webinars, but it did not indent them by default. If I say okay to this, those are going to be their own buttons on the bar. I don't want them to be their own buttons. I want them to be a sub menu underneath upcoming webinars. So if I click on them and I use the right arrow to indent, right arrow to indent, and the other is called outdent. Now we know it's outdent, indent and outdent. I wasn't sure. So now that I've used the indent button and I pushed them underneath and over to the side, that's going to mean they're drop down options in the menu. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And we're going to have to hit close to see it actually happen. Right now, this is still in edit mode. Let's hit the close button, give it a moment to update. And now if I take my mouse and I hover above these, when I get to upcoming webinars, wonderful, there it is. There's my drop-down menu. So yes, you can use the horizontal navigation bar to do drop-down menus if you want to indent those. All right. Well, let's show you one more navigation option. I told you there'd be 3. So you can edit the navigation for the sidebar. You can edit the navigation for the horizontal navigation bar. Let me show you one more option for navigation. And that is, what if you have some pages on your site like a blog page, whether it's, in this case, upcoming webinars, maybe it's student of the week, maybe it's class news. And you're worried, people aren't going to find it. It's too buried. It's too far down in the site. Well, you can actually use a special gadget that will grab your most recent blog posts, your most recent announcement pages, and it can add it anywhere you want. Like, so maybe on the main welcome page. So maybe if somebody looks at the main welcome page, they maybe down the side here could get a list of the most recent articles added to your student of the week or class news or whatever the announcement page is doing. So you can add navigation on a page that points to other pages like recent announcements. Okay, so let me show you how that works. That is not part of the edit site layout. So for this one, we're not going to go into edit site layout. Why? Because we're not changing the sidebar or the header or the horizontal navigation. We're actually going to edit the welcome page. We're going to put a special gadget on the welcome page that pulls the most recent posts from our announcement page. So basically that means I need to use my pencil icon. I need to edit the welcome page. Okay, so let's do that. So let's edit the welcome page, click on the pencil, go into edit mode. And then what I want to do is I want to find a place to stick this gadget. I mean, I could just put it at the bottom, that's fine. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change my layout of just this one page. And I'm going to switch it from one column to two columns. That way there's text in one column, and maybe the other column will have my most recent news articles, my most recent blog posts. So I'm going to switch from one column to two column. So it pushes everything over to this one column. And now I've got a whole big old blank second column here that I can now take advantage of. Well, I'm going to stick a gadget into this column. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go up to the insert menu. And from the insert menu, under the gadgets, there's a bunch of recent gadgets. I can do recent posts, recently updated files, or recent list items. So if I'm using a list page, this pulls the most recent list items. If I'm using a file cabinet page, this pulls the most recent files. If I'm using an announcement page, this pulls the most recent posts. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab the most recent posts from the announcement page. So basically what I can do is choose which announcement page I want to pull from. Well, I've only got one, upcoming webinars. And I can decide, do I want to pull the entire post, a medium part of it, or just a short snippet? I'm just going to do a short snippet, just a little bit, the first like sentence or so from it. And then, I can even include a thumbnail if I want. So if there's a picture in the post, it'll grab that picture and add it as a little thumbnail. That can be helpful. Looks good. Let's go ahead and click Save. And because it's a gadget, it's going to be gray, a gray box until you hit save. But as soon as I hit save, this recent announcements gadget should now give me one more navigation option for people to get to pages that might be buried otherwise. So let's hit save, give it a moment to do its thing, and here it comes. Now it should pull those pictures in as well. I may have to give it a moment to grab the pictures, or I'll do a refresh here. They're coming in. Okay, I just have to be patient. And so now notice on my welcome page, I've got my regular welcome text, but over here in this column, I now have recent announcements, and there's a link to teaching math with drawings and learn something new every day. So it grabs the first sentence or so, the first blurb out of it. It grabs the picture it finds from the page, and it grabs a link to that page. So you can add navigation by using gadgets like recent announcements so that people from your very first welcome page can see recent posts that have been made on your class news page or so forth. All right, so that's the idea behind navigation, and that's really what we wanted to start with here today, was cover that in depth. Hopefully that gives you a pretty good feel for how you can change the sidebar navigation, the horizontal navigation, and the recent announcements blurb navigation. Okay. All right, let's move on to the second thing we were going to cover, which is general site layout and a special focus on your header. Okay, so we're actually going to go back to exactly where we just were a moment ago, which is edit site layout. We're going to get a lot of mileage out of that that view today. So if we want to, let's go back up to our gear, and from our drop down in our gear, we want to go to edit site layout like we've been doing earlier. And that gets us back into that special mode where we can turn things on, turn things off. So what I want to do is show you three things, three quick things you could do from this screen to edit the general layout of your site. All right, so one of them is back to the sidebar. Remember we talked about the sidebar and how you got your navigation over here. Well, you know what? The sidebar doesn't have to be just navigation. You can have other stuff over there too. Navigation's great, but what if you want other things, maybe an announcement or a picture or who knows what? You just want some more things going down. There's a bunch of empty space here. Kind of feels wasted, doesn't it? Look at all that empty space. Maybe we should fill that up with some stuff. Well, if I take my mouse and I hover it above the sidebar, notice I have a little plus button right at the top where it says sidebar. That little plus button will let me add other items to the sidebar. So let's click on it. Let's click on that little plus button. Again, I got there by going to Edit Site Layout. Hover above the sidebar, hit the little plus button, and let's see. I can add a Google ++1 button. I can add another navigation window. I could add a text box, just a simple text box, which I could type anything in I want, or I could edit the HTML of it to add a picture. Really, basically, it's just a wide open box. You can put anything in it you want. That's cool. Recent site activity, my recent activity, a countdown timer, the site owners, the page authors. There's a lot of stuff we could put in there. I typically use this to add more navigation boxes or to add a text box that I put my own custom content in, pictures, links, things like that. Or for fun, I like the countdown timer. So let's do one of those. So basically, if I say I want to add a countdown, click Add. And you'll notice over here on the side, it has now added a countdown timer. Now I need to set it. So I come over here and click on it. And basically, it wants to know the event and the date. So let's jump out to June 25th. Because that is Eric's birthday. Now I'm going to keep using that in most all my webinars, and hopefully eventually I'll start getting a lot of birthday cards if I just keep bringing this up. But yes, June 25th. And if I hit OK, we'll now get a countdown timer over here that says 115 days until Eric's birthday. Plenty of shopping time out there for everybody. So you can add as many gadgets as you would like, these items, to your sidebar. It doesn't have to be just navigation. And that's a neat way to really flesh it out. And so I've seen that used very, very well on a lot of sites if you want to add additional content. Like maybe your school just got rated as an excellent district again. Well, throw in a text box and add an image of the excellent district banner. That's a great way to throw that on the side over there. All right, that's one of the things. The second thing I wanted to talk about here is adjusting your site width. Now notice by default, it's going 100% across the page, all the way across. That's your full site. That's the site width. Well, that's fine under normal conditions to go ahead and stretch across the entire page. But sometimes I get a little worried about what if I start designing this page and I'm adding more things and bigger pictures and stuff. And while I'm doing it, it looks great to me because I'm sitting at a computer with a high resolution monitor. Okay. What about somebody in a school district where they've got some older monitors or some older laptops and they can't run at such a high resolution? What does your page look like on older computers when it all gets scrunched together into a smaller screen? Well, because of that, a habit I've gotten into is I do not leave my site width at 100%. I actually go in and I set it at a custom size that I think is pretty safe, usually pretty safe, that no matter how old somebody's computer is, no matter how low res their monitor is, it's still going to look decent on their device. So instead of going with theme default, I'm going to go with custom up here in the top where it says site width custom. And then in this box, I'm going to type in a number followed by either px for pixel or percent for percentage. Now I could say make it 80% of the page. That may sound like a good idea, but again, that's just going to be different for everybody because everybody's screens are different resolutions. I go with pixels. So what I do is this. Now this is me. You can go whichever way you like to go. I typically go with 960 pixels, 960 px. Okay, I'll zoom in so you can see that real well before I zoom out. Okay, so I go to custom 960px for pixels. Okay, and when I press enter here in a moment, what it's going to do is it's going to resize the page and only allow it to be 960 pixels wide, no bigger. Okay, so let's do that. Let me hit enter, and boom, there we go. So what it's done is it's pulled in the sides of the page, and it guarantees that no matter who opens this up now, it's never going to get bigger than 960 pixels across. Now, why did I pick that? Well, because most computers are probably around 1366 wide or 1280 wide, but there are still some computers in schools running at 1024 by 768. Well, if somebody's got a computer that old, that's 1024 pixels wide, this will still fit nicely on their screen. They're not going to have to worry about it scrolling off the side or getting all jumbled up. So I usually set things at 960px so that I can rest assured it's going to look fine no matter who sees it, and I won't be deceiving myself by looking at it on my big monitor and thinking it looks fine. Okay, third thing, last piece of the editing the site layout. So we edited our sidebar a bit, we changed our custom width to 960px. What about our header? Okay, right now it's pretty boring. I'll have to be honest with you. It says Curts example 002, and that's all it says. Well, here's the thing, folks. If you want, you can edit your header. You got to kind of do it in two places, though. Here, yes, if I come in and give a click on my header, there's a little bit I can do here. I can change how tall it is. So there's a height option. I can put in pixels for how tall the header is. And I can decide whether or not it's using a logo or not. Okay. But that's about it. So not a whole lot of tweaking. We're probably going to have to come back to here in just a moment, because here's my plan. I want to make my own custom header, some really cool header that I want to stick up there instead of just this text. So what I did, and I'll drag it over here onto the screen so you can see it. Here it comes. I went ahead inside of Google Drawings. I created a header. So this is simply Google Drawings, nothing fancy about it at all. Please check out one of our multitudes of webinars and handouts on Google Drawings. I simply made a drawing, threw in a box, threw in some text, grabbed a piece of clip art, and that's a cooler header. Mr. Eric Curts' website, a little bit cooler header there. And I built that header to be 960 pixels wide by 120 pixels tall. So it should just fit right in there at the top of the site. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download this file, download as a PNG. PNG, that's a pretty decent image format for web pages. PNG, portable network graphic, good image for a web page. I'm going to go ahead and download it as a PNG. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that, and I'm going to make that be my new header. So how am I going to do that? Two steps. First thing, let's exit the edit site layout. So I'm going to close out of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily go back to my themes, colors, and fonts page. I'm going to stick the header in there. Then I'll come back to edit site layout to adjust like the height and make sure it fits perfectly. So how does that work? Well, I'm going to go back up to my gear in the top right, and I'm going to go down to Manage Site. Now, this was from session 1. So if you go all the way back to session 1, we talked about picking the theme of your site, the background color, the font, stuff like that. That's where I can go to change my header, to swap my header out. So I'm going to go to Manage Site from my gear, and from Manage Site, I'm going to go all the way down on the left-hand side to Themes, Colors, and Fonts. So far bottom left-hand side, Themes, Colors, and Fonts. We did this in session 1. And that's where you can pick the theme you want to use, so any theme you want. But remember from session 1, this is also where you can go to micromanage your theme. You can say, I'm going to go with Treehouse, but I want my background to be a different color, or I want my content area to have a different font, or I want my gadgets to look a little different. Look what's here. Site header. Yep, right there in the micromanaging section underneath your theme, you can adjust the site header. And what you can do is you can change the background of the header to be an image. Aha, I can pick a picture as an image to be the background of my header. And that picture can be that cool header I created. So again, I went to Manage Site. I went down to Themes, Colors, and Fonts. I went to the Micromanage section of the theme editing. I chose Site Header. I chose Background. And next to Image, I'm choosing the Picture button because I want to upload a picture. And there it is. There's my sample site header I just downloaded a few seconds ago. Let me choose that and chugga, chugga, chugga. It's going to upload that image and it's going to stick it in. Now you're going to say, Eric, that looks terrible. Yes, you're right. We got to tweak a few things, but it's there. There it is. It actually put the image in the background of the header. I got a few problems. It's not tall enough to fit. We got to fix that. And oh, shoot, I've still got my regular title and I've still got my search box. Okay, so I got to turn those off. But other than that, pretty good. Now, the only thing I might want to check before I leave the screen is right next to where I added the image, there is a little drop-down options button. And usually the thing I turn off is the repeating option. I don't need my header tiling or repeating, because if it's a smaller header than the size, it'll keep repeating it over and over again to fill up the header space. So I'm going to say none for my repeating. I don't need it actually repeating. It just needs to show up once. Let's hit save in the top to apply that. And now let's clean this guy up. I need to get rid of the original title. I need to get rid of the search box, and I need to make this area taller so that my header actually fits. Well, how do we do that? Well, to get rid of the title and the search box, we do that still under Manage Site. We do that in the General section. So under Manage Site, if I go to the General section, I can turn things like that off. Notice under the General section, right here, site name, there's a checkbox. I'll zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. Under the General section, site name, there's a checkbox, show site name at the top of pages. Nope, we don't need the site name anymore. We've got a cool header. And then let's scroll down to the search section. Here's the configure search button. Let's say, you know what? Let's turn off enable search. We don't need that search box. It's just getting in the way of my cool header. Now you could leave it if you want, but I'm going to turn it off, hit OK. And there we go. So I unchecked show the site name at the top of the pages, and I came down to configure search and I unchecked enable search. If I again save those changes and then click on my link that takes me back to my web page, you'll notice we're getting an awful lot closer. Now the header's there. There's no old title at the top. There's no search box at the top. All I have to do is give a little more breathing room so this header actually fits. So to finish off this, all I have to do now is go back to my gear and return to Edit Site Layout, which we've been visiting over and over again today. Edit Site Layout is what's going to allow me to change, for example, the header height. So if I come in here and I click right on my header, so I come in here and I click on my header, I can set a pixel height, which I think 120 should work. That's how big the drawing was I made. Let's see if I need to give it a little bit more breathing room. I can, but let me set it at 120 for the height. Let's hit OK and see, does that do enough? Give it a moment to adjust. Maybe not. Maybe 120 was not enough. Let me go back in. Whoops. It did not keep that. 120 pixels, hit OK, and be patient, and maybe. There it is, yay, perfect. 120 was right. I just didn't hit the correct button to save it. And there we go, look at that. What a different page that is now. Now I've got, oh, let's hit close. Let's close out of our edit site layout. Look at that. I've got a cool header at the top. I've got custom navigation down the side. I've got a horizontal navigation bar. I've got a gadget with my latest blog posts. I've got a countdown to my birthday. Looking really snazzy. How about that? That's really transformed the site. All right. So guys, that gets us through the two first main topics we want to talk about. There's only two left, and they're actually kind of short. So I think we're going to be fine. I'm keeping an eye on the time. We're about 45 minutes in. We've got about 15 minutes left to hit the 1 hour mark. So I think we're good. I think we can fit in the last two topics we wanted to cover and hopefully have just a little breathing room for some questions. So Anthony is monitoring the Q&A doc. If you have questions, please do continue to put them in there. So what did we say we were still going to talk about? The last main areas was we wanted to talk about what we call page level permissions when it comes to sharing your site, how you can micromanage the sharing of your site. And then finally, we wanted to wrap up with duplicating pages, deleting pages, just the general maintenance of your site as it will need over time, the pruning that will need to go on. So let's start with page level permissions and explain what that's all about. Way back in session 1, we talked about sharing. That was something we covered very first session of this trilogy of webinars. And if you go up to the big blue share button in the top right-hand corner and give that a click, it does take you to the normal sharing screen. I'll zoom in a bit here. Nothing special here. Basically, this is where you can go in and decide to share your site. You can either say it's public to everybody on the internet, or you can change that and say, oh no, it's just for your organization, or it's just certain people. You can also scroll to the bottom and you can add people explicitly. You can say, I'm going to give this person edit rights or view rights or ownership rights. And we talked about that in pretty good detail in the first session. View rights means you can just see the site. Edit rights means you can add pages and edit pages. Ownership rights means you can change the sharing and you can change the themes, the colors, the fonts. You can get into all of this background stuff. Notice there is no can comment. That's more for like a Google Doc. This is a Google site. So it's can view, can edit, or is owner. Well, here's the deal, guys. As nice as that is, that's a pretty blunt instrument. Basically, the site is either viewable or not. Or if I add you and I make you an editor, you can either edit the whole site or none of it. Either you're the owner of it all or you're not. It's pretty much everything or nothing. Well, that's not necessarily what you want. Maybe your website has a ton of pages on it and you're like, shh, this is a lot to manage. I would like somebody to help me with this. Maybe this is my classroom page. And maybe I want to give a couple of students the right to add to the blog page. I want them to add to the announcements. Or maybe it's a building web page and I want the building secretary to be able to add to the file cabinet page. Or, I've got a librarian and she, comes up with these awesome links. I want her to be able to add to the list page with the educational links. But I don't want those people being able to edit everything on the site. I just want them to edit just the announcement page or just the list page or just the file cabinet page. Well, this is where page level permissions come in. In Google Sites, you're allowed to turn on page level permissions, and then you can give people rights just per page. So they can view the whole site, but then they can edit just this one page. Or they can view the whole site, but they can't view this one page. It's a private page. You can control all of that. How does that work? Well, up here in the top right-hand corner, there's a big button that says Enable Page Level Permissions. You get to that from the sharing page. Again, you got to go to Share first. Once you go to the sharing page, if you click on the big Enable Page Level Permissions button at the top, it'll say, are you sure you want to do this? And you go, yes, I am. And you go ahead and turn it on. Now watch what happens when I turn on page level permissions. This sharing page becomes more advanced. Let me zoom out so you can see it better. Basically what it does is it takes the normal sharing page, moves it over to the right, and then it puts a tree over here on the left. And I can go in page by page by page by page, and I can change the permissions on each individual page to give people special permissions. Now, it works a little different than you might think. It's not, okay, for example, let's say I want to give Spark Online. That's one of our generic accounts we use for online learning. I want Spark Online to be able to edit my upcoming webinars. I want to give him the ability to go in, and because it's an online learning account, I want Spark Online to be able to go in and add new announcements to that announcements page. Well, I can't go here and make a change and add somebody new in at the sub level. I actually have to start at the very, very, very top of the site, add them in maybe just as a viewer to get them in the loop. And once they're in the list of available people, then I can go down to a lower page and I can adjust them. So you really can't add somebody at a lower page. You can just change their permission. So if I go to the very, very, very top and I say, you know what, let's add Spark Online. Let's give them, there it is, Spark Online. Let's give Spark Online just view rights. You say, really, Eric, view rights? Everybody can view the page. Yeah. I just need to get them in the list of people here. So I'm going to add Spark Online as a viewer of the whole site. Then I'll hit send to send them that email. Once Spark Online is in the list of everybody who can access the site, there they are, they're in the list now. Now I can drill down to upcoming webinars. And Spark Online's there now. They're showing up in the list. That's good. And I can click this big change button. So right here on the right, it says, do you want to use the same permissions as everything else on the site? I can say, no, I do not. I want upcoming webinars to break off of the rest of the site. I don't want it to have the same permissions. So I can hit the change button and I can say, you know what? We're going to use custom permissions just for this page. And when I click save, guess what? Now I can micromanage just that page. So now upcoming webinars, I can come in and say, Spark Online, you're not just a viewer, you're an editor. And I can upgrade Spark Online for just that one page and what's below it as being an editor. If I hit save, now Spark Online can view the page like everybody. But if that Spark Online account digs down to the webinars page, suddenly guess what? He can now add new posts there. He can now edit that page. So this is a really great way if you want to give people either additional power, or if you want to hide things from people. So like if I decided that, you know what, forms and docs too, as much as I thought I wanted people to get to that, I really don't. I'm going to make that a hidden page. Well, no problem. Click on the link, come over here and click the change, say I want custom permissions, save that, and basically you could change it and say, you know what, at the moment that's public on the web. Nah, let's change it. I could say for that particular page, I'm going to make sure it is off. It is not viewable unless you're a specific person that I've given rights to. And I could save that. And now guess what? Nobody else can get to Forms and Docs 2 anymore because only specific people can access it. That's a way you can make it visible just to your staff, for example. Maybe this is a special staff-only page and nobody else needs to see it. All right, that's the gist of page-level permissions. All right. Let's head back to the site for our fourth and final topic. So we've done navigation, we've done editing our site layout, we've talked about page level permissions. The final thing that I was hoping to get in, I think we can do it, is going forward, maintaining a site over time. Every now and then you're going to want to create new pages, delete old pages. Just wanted to show you just a few real quick ideas behind that. Here's one of them. What if you need to make a new page and it's pretty similar to a page you've done before? I'll use the 4 C's for Education page as an example, probably not the best example, but I'll use that one as an example. We do this a lot when we're talking about our webinars. We got to save time. Every time we make a new webinar, we got to make a web page for it. Well, neither Anthony nor I have the time to, from scratch, create a new webinar page for every webinar. So what do? Well, basically we copy an old page. Now, technically we copy a template. I'll show you that as well. But let's say you wanted to add another page and you said, you know what, I want it to basically look exactly like the page that I had before, and then I just want to tweak it. Well, folks, you can do that by opening up a page and going up to the gear in the top right-hand corner. There is a copy page option. So yeah, you can just copy a page. So if I hit copy page, it'll ask me to give it a new name. I'll just say test 2 just for now and hit copy. And as simple as that, I now have a carbon copy of that page that I could now go in and edit any way I want. So if you don't want to create a whole new page from scratch, build off the pages you've already made. Perfectly fine to do so. Okay.
One time you do need to hit the save button.
And yes, you do have to hit save. Thank you, Anthony. So after being done with that, it does expect you to hit the save button to exit from the edit mode and save that off. Before we leave that idea, if I go back up to the gear, you'll notice there's also next or below copy page. If you go down a little further, there is save as page template. If you find out that you copied it once and then you needed it again next week and the next month you copied it again, you may say, you know what? I am copying this page all the time. I really like the layout of this page. Tell you what, just save it as a template. So you can say save as a page template. And if you do that, basically what it's going to do is it's going to add it to your list of available templates when you create new pages. So if I go ahead and save this, now anytime I go to create a brand new page, if I come here to, go ahead and save that off. If I come here to my new page button, if I come up and say, I'm going to make a brand new page. Now, when I go to make a brand new page, I've got my normal templates. And guess what? Now I've got my test 2 template. Well, that's what we do for our webinars. We have a webinar page template. We made it look just perfect once. Then we saved it as a page template, and we just make new pages from it anytime we want. All right. All righty. So let's go ahead now. And let me go ahead and head back to page 2 for a moment here. Let's say I decided, you know what? I don't think I really do need this page. I've played around with it and I've decided, yeah, this page is old, or I really don't need it anymore. Can you get rid of things you don't need? Absolutely. So from the same gear that we're used to going to, you'll notice there is a delete page option there as well. Yeah, you can clean out old pages you don't need. So if you're not using a page anymore, it's certainly fine to delete it. Go to the gear, choose delete page, and says, are you sure you want to do that? And you say, yes, I am. Hit delete, and poof, it will delete that page. Now, is it gone for good? Well, it will be. It holds on to it for 30 days or 4 weeks or 1 month, however you want to think of that. So you can, within 4 weeks, 30 days, 1 month, you can bring it back if you decided, no, I didn't mean to delete that. How do you do that? You go to your gear. You go down to manage site, because now it's in your trash pretty much. So you go to the gear, you go to manage site, and inside of manage site, one of the links on the left is deleted items. So if I click on that, it'll show me any pages that I've deleted recently, including test 2. I could check it and I could recover it if I wanted to bring it back, as long as I do it within 4 weeks of that time. All right, guys. Now, I know that is a ton of stuff in a very short amount of time. And yes, this is more advanced. If you haven't done session 1 and session 2, we didn't reteach it. We just pretty much moved on from there. So I would definitely encourage you to revisit those sessions if you need to pick up on some of the things you missed. But hopefully this helps you round off your website, kind of make it more attractive with a custom header, with some custom navigation, to be able to share it more granularly with your staff and your students, keeping pages private that need to be, giving edit rights just to certain portions. So hopefully that'll help you to go to that next level. Now I'm going to pause for a moment. Anthony, are there any outstanding questions? I think you've been on the ball with that. Excellent. Very, very good. So as we wrap up here today, just a couple of reminders. Everything that we've been looking at here today can be found at tiny.cc/spark 233. That is the shortened URL to get you to this page here, which is our Google Sites for Schools Part 3 webinar. There you'll find the recorded video, you'll find the session resources such as the very detailed help guide, the live session chat. There is the evaluation form. Please do give that a click. We'd love to get your feedback. And hey, get yourself a certificate of attendance for this. There's a quiz at the bottom there. Give a click on that. And once you pass the quiz, you'll be emailed a PDF certificate of attendance for 1 contact hour to turn into your school. Now, while you're on the site, definitely check out a few other things. We have our PD schedule of our upcoming webinars, and we've got a bunch of them on tap. There's 4 more of them in queue for the month of March. So something there probably will be exciting to you. Definitely check out our recorded trainings of all of our past webinars. We're over 30 webinars now. And there's also a newsletter where you can sign up for to stay in the loop on everything that we are doing. There was a question, Anthony. What was it?
About the plus button.
What about the plus button?
When you were in the sidebar.
When I was in the sidebar? Oh, sure. There was a quick question. We'll pop back over there. That is not a problem at all. The question was in the sidebar, what was that plus button for? Yeah, if you go back into edit site layout, while you're in there, if I hover my mouse above the sidebar, that plus button, that's how I added new items to the sidebar. So if I go to my sidebar and I hit the little plus button, that's where I can say I want to add a +1 button, for example. That's like the Google Plus. It's kind of like Facebook liking. You're going to +1 something. That's the Google +1ing. And you can add lots of other things there as well. All right, so let's go ahead and again, we're going to wrap everything up. Let you know, again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. We hope to see you again in the coming weeks for more educational technology webinars. Take care, everyone.